Fast forward to February 7, 2009. Perhaps the most predictably catastrophic bushfire day in Australian history. Victorian authorities leave the power on. The result was Black Saturday, and the very real possibility that bushfires ignited by power lines killed 161 of the 173 people who died that day.
Turning power off is an understandable and superficially attractive option. And it's why it is raised fairly consistently and has been over the years. The truth is that it is very controversial with the community, and rightly so, because the community recognise that power has important utility in terms of essential services, in terms of water, pumps. It's critical and important for animal welfare, communications, and to preemptively turn power off really causes more problems and creates more risks than it actually solves.
Since 2009, Paul Fearon has been Director of Energy Safe Victoria, which oversees the state's now privatised electricity industry.
The distribution companies and myself, we all have powers and the ability to deal with foreseeable circumstances that would create an unsafe or an emergency situation. And the power is turned off in those situations.
Has it ever happened in Victoria?
Preemptive turning off of power, it has not happened. And the current policy of this government and previous governments is that it wouldn't happen. And I certainly wouldn't recommend it.
So this is the area where serious fires occurred and quite a large number of people lost their lives in this area. So
Bill Greenland is the former General Manager of Supply Safety for Energy Safe Victoria. He's retired now, but keeps a worried eye on the state's power network.
Well, they're bare wires and they're out there in the open space, and there's still a lot of the old equipment still there. And of course, that equipment is prone to failure after a long period of time, and they will start fires. And the hotter the day and the more serious the day becomes, the more likely you have of getting a fire start and starting some form of bushfire.
Bill Greenland believes that it is inevitable that despite improvements, Victoria's ageing network will continue to start bushfires on high danger days unless the power is turned off.
We do have a lot of fire starts a year from electricity assets, and I'd have to say that, you know, they're not decreasing to the extent that they should be. Until we get to that situation, I think we've got to take a proper look at the system and say somewhere in those areas we may have to take the power off.
The horror of 1983's Ash Wednesday led to exactly that conclusion in South Australia. Here, on days of extreme fire danger, electricity distributors can switch the power off to high-risk areas without incurring liability for losses suffered. Vince Duffy is the bureaucrat in charge of South Australia's powering off policy.
In high wind conditions, you tend to get branches coming off trees that come into contact with power lines, and when they're live, they short across and can start a fire with the tree or cause a fire to start in the grass below. And with extreme dry conditions as well as high winds, they can get away from people really quickly. So in those circumstances, in high bushfire risk areas, there is a policy to turn the power off on occasions. It hasn't been used extensively, but it is there as one of the options to minimise fire starts.
So in South Australia, the calculation is that in those conditions, it's just simply safer in some areas not to have power.
Yes.
South Australia's private electricity distributor, SA Power Networks, has told Four Corners that if it faced the same conditions confronted by Victoria on Black Saturday, it would have switched the power off.
Well, I'm not sure that I would put a lot of credibility on that comment, that it's faced with that decision, you couldn't take something like that lightly, and all I can say is that that comment is more in the nature of a throwaway line, more about explaining how serious and significant the conditions that we faced.
So if Victoria faced a day like Black Saturday again, would you recommend the power go off?
I would not recommend the power. If I was faced with exactly the same conditions, I would not be recommending the power be turned off, because to do so I would need to say where and when. And when it comes down to trying to operationalise a concept that seems obvious and intuitively attractive, is very complex and difficult to apply in practice. The question is where and when.
If you faced comparable conditions in South Australia, would you have turned the power off?
It's a decision for SA Power Networks to make, but I expect if they had met the fire danger 3 level and there was greater than 63 km/h average winds, they would have turned the power off to avoid the risk of bushfires.
On Black Saturday?
In any circumstances where those conditions are met.